people living in a tin can 250 miles above your head, and part of that tin can is cracking. This week, the International Space Station's Russian-built Zvezda service module developed a serious enough leak that NASA instructed crew members to shelter inside a SpaceX Dragon capsule as a safe haven. Then Roscosmos paused its own repair efforts to take more measurements. And in the middle of all of this, a solar event triggered one of the most spectacular aurora displays the station has ever seen, and the astronauts filmed it. This is what it actually looks like when a $150 billion orbital laboratory faces a structural crisis from the inside. In the next 7 minutes we are breaking down everything: what exactly is the Zvezda module and why it matters, what a safe haven procedure actually means and how serious it is, how NASA and Roscosmos are navigating this together amid broader geopolitical tensions, why a solar flare made this week even more dramatic, and what the breathtaking Aurora footage from inside the Dragon capsule tells us about life on the edge of space. Here is the timeline as it unfolded. On June 3, NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center reported that the Sun had emitted a strong X-1.0 class solar flare, peaking at 7:28 a.m. Eastern. Solar flares at this classification can produce geomagnetic storms and elevated radiation in low Earth orbit, relevant context for what followed. Then, on June 5 at 1:16 p.m. Eastern, the space station account began posting a sequence of updates that, read together, paint a concerning picture. The Zvezda service module's transfer tunnel, known as the PRK, has suffered from cracks and leaks for some time. Roscosmos had been managing these cracks as best they could, and NASA had been monitoring them closely. On June 5, the situation escalated. Roscosmos attempted structural repair efforts inside the PRK and then paused those efforts to take more measurements and assess additional data. In response to that pause and its implications, NASA instructed the crew members inside the Dragon spacecraft to shelter in place as a precautionary safe haven measure. By June 5 evening, NASA issued a formal update confirmed by the @space_station account, making the situation public. The following day, June 6, an astronaut aboard the station confirmed that the crew was safe and that they had witnessed a spectacular southern aurora show triggered by the recent solar event. And on June 7, just hours before this recording, a time-lapse video was posted from inside the SpaceX Dragon capsule showing the aurora dancing and snaking directly below the station. The astronaut described it as ethereal and emotionally evocative. In a week of structural anxiety, the universe offered a reminder of why humans go to space at all. To understand what is actually at stake here, you need to understand what the Zvezda module is and why it is irreplaceable. Zvezda, Russian for star, is the oldest continuously operational component of the ISS still in active use. It serves as the primary life support hub for the Russian segment, houses the main computers for station attitude control, and provides the docking port through which Soyuz spacecraft arrive and depart. It is, in a very real sense, the backbone of the Russian half of the station. The first question viewers are likely asking is, how serious is this crack, and is the crew in danger? The short answer is that according to the postings from the station, the crew is currently safe and Roscosmos has been managing these cracks for some time. But NASA's decision to instruct the crew to shelter inside the Dragon spacecraft is not a routine precaution. Safe haven procedures represent an elevated response, reserved for scenarios where the primary habitat's integrity is sufficiently uncertain to warrant an escape-ready posture. A second critical question is, what does this mean for the future of the ISS itself? On that front, this may suggest that the longer-term decommissioning timeline for the ISS, currently planned for a controlled re-entry around 2030, is coming into sharper focus. The structural fatigue now being observed in modules that are over 2 decades old is not unexpected, but it is a reminder that the station was not built to last forever. Some analysts believe incidents like this reinforce the urgency of developing and certifying commercial space station replacements before the ISS is no longer viable. The question of when to transition, and to what, may be moving from a future policy debate to a present operational necessity. How serious is this crack, and is the crew in immediate danger? The crew is currently reported safe and NASA has indicated the situation is being actively managed. However, the safe haven procedure in Dragon is an elevated response that goes beyond routine precautions, suggesting the situation is serious enough to maintain escape readiness, even if an immediate evacuation has not been ordered. What does this mean for the long-term future of the ISS? Structural fatigue in a 26-year-old module may accelerate the practical urgency of the ISS transition plan. Some analysts believe it reinforces the need to certify commercial station successors before 2030. Exact impacts on the decommissioning schedule have not yet been confirmed by NASA. In the United States, this story lands at a moment of significant transition for NASA's human spaceflight portfolio. The ISS is America's most visible symbol of international scientific cooperation, and any crisis aboard the station puts a spotlight on NASA's management of aging infrastructure at exactly the moment the agency is asking Congress and the public to fund the next generation of commercial stations in the Moon Base program simultaneously. For the communities around Houston's Johnson Space Center, which manages ISS operations, the stakes are deeply personal. In Russia, the situation carries a different kind of weight. Roscosmos has been managing the Zvezda cracks for years, and the pause in repair efforts suggests the challenge may be exceeding the agency's current mitigation tools. Russia's space agency has faced significant budget and geopolitical pressures in recent years, and this incident playing out publicly on social media in real time adds to a complicated narrative around the reliability of the Russian segment and the future of Russian participation in any successor station. For the broader international community that participates in the ISS, including Japan, Canada, and the European Space Agency, this is a reminder that the station's remaining operational years are finite. ESA astronauts currently aboard or scheduled to fly to the ISS, and the agencies with experiments running in the station's laboratories, are watching the structural situation closely. The timeline pressure to transition to commercial successors is felt most acutely by international partners who have less direct control over the decommissioning schedule. To be fair, there is a strong case that this situation is being managed responsibly and that the alarm level in public coverage may outrun the actual risk. Roscosmos and NASA have known about the Zvezda cracks for years and have, by their own account, been managing them continuously. The safe haven procedure is a precautionary protocol, not a confirmed emergency evacuation. The fact that the crew was able to end the safe haven posture and return to normal station operations and was posting Aurora photography the following day suggests the immediate danger was controlled. Some engineers would argue that this is exactly what mature, safety-first spaceflight management looks like: constant monitoring, transparent communication, and precautionary responses that may never need to escalate further. The most dramatic footage of this entire crisis was not of cracked metal or sheltering astronauts, it was an Aurora dancing below a capsule that was also serving as a potential lifeboat. Space has a way of making even emergencies beautiful. Tell us in the comments, should NASA accelerate the ISS retirement timeline, or push to keep it flying as long as possible?